may God bless you. This is Pastor Joshua. And the book of Jeremiah is talking about a people of God called Israel. In Jeremiah chapter 30 is talking about that the people of God called Israel will go into captivity. And Jeremiah is having a little conflict here. And God says to Jeremiah in chapter 30, and I'm going to start from verse 15. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things unto you. So Jeremiah needed to learn something very valuable. God loves us more than Jeremiah loved the people. God is the one that called Jeremiah. He's the one that formed him in his mother's womb. He called him before the foundation of the world, just as God called each and one of us as well. I want to encourage you, don't cry over something that you have no control over. And God wanted to show Jeremiah, why do you cry when I've already said what's going to happen? Here the crying is the weeping. In fact, Jeremiah was called the weeping prophet. Jeremiah went through times of groaning in the spirit because and on behalf of God's people. When God's people would not listen to Jeremiah, they would not listen to his words, the words that God gave Jeremiah for God's people. Remember that God said to Jeremiah, you are a prophet to the nations. So God wanted to remind Jeremiah, you're going to be a weeping prophet. Because in order for you to be a prophet to the nations, there's going to be a lot of crying involved, because there's going to be a lot of messages that you're going to have to pray it through, that you're going to have to groan it through. It's the ministry of groaning. And so groaning in the spirit, Jeremiah needed to go with it. And God said to Jeremiah, stop crying. This is not time for crying. And I just want to encourage you, there's a time to stop crying, and it's a time to do what God told you to do. Crying all the time, you know, the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, says there's a time for everything. And God was saying to Jeremiah, this is not time for crying, Jeremiah. It's time for action. It is time. And look what God said to Jeremiah as well. He says, therefore all that they devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. God said to Jeremiah, anybody that bothers you, anybody that go against you, anyone that gives you a hard time, anyone that is trying to hurt you in either way, word, in spirit, or physically, everything that they do unto you shall come back to them. So stop crying, Jeremiah. I've given you the power. I've given you the authority. I've given you the grace to go through what you have to go through. What an encouragement. When God calls a man and he calls a woman, he's going to be with them unto the end. Jesus said, don't forget, I'll be with you unto the very end. The end of what? Unto your journey. I'm going to be with you all the way. No matter what happens, I will always be there. All you got to do is just call me. And Jeremiah needed to learn many things. And God said to Jeremiah, said, listen, once you stop crying, once you get your act together, I'll restore you back to where I had you, meaning in the office of the prophets. I'm going to restore you back into the ministry. But right now, you're in a cooling period. Right now, you are having a coffee break until you get your act together. Right now, you don't have your act together, so I can't really use you because your mind is everywhere and nowhere. Your mind is on the human level. I need you to come up higher, and I need you to come up to the spiritual level in order for you to continue to hear my voice and to continue to be my voice among the nations and among my people. Look what it says in verse 17. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee, if thy wounds, save the Lord, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. And so God wanted to heal Jeremiah of all his wounds. You know, God is interested in your emotional state, physical state, and your spiritual state. Until next time, this has been your host, Pastor Joshua.